Time to die! Activate the laser! It's not doing anything. My back feels kind of warm, but to be honest, that's kind of a pleasant sensation. Darn it! Send in the Secretary of the Department of Lasers. Hello, I have glasses. Why isn't the laser working? I don't know, it's my first day. Send in the Undersecretary of the Department of Lasers. I'm the Undersecretary of the Department of Lasers. We haven't received our paychecks in 2 weeks. You'll all get your paychecks.
Andy, it's time for dinner. What are you doing up there?
Mom, I'm playing bureaucracy.
Hello, I'm Andrew Heaton, and you're watching EconPop, the show that sifts through the haystack of popular culture to find the needle of economics within, and then stabs you with it. About 80% of why I plan to have children is so that I have an excuse to find all of my old Legos in Mom and Dad's house. The other 20% is for love, tax exemptions, and spare kidneys. Recently, Lego extended beyond making castles and spaceships to an actual feature-length motion picture. An excellent film, which I fully intend to force my future children to watch.
Oh my gosh, I love this song!
Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when we're part of the team. Everything is awesome when we're living our dream.
The villain of the film is President Business and his alter ego, Lord Business, played by Will Ferrell. Now, the Mitt Romney haircut and name Lord Business might make you infer that this is a screed against commerce, which would be an interesting theory. But clearly, the Lego movie is actually a 2-hour-long commercial for children's toys with constant product placement and branding that's already grossed several $million. Moreover, President Business doesn't just run a corporation. He also controls the police and the government and voting machines. He's not a businessman, he's a dictator who wants to control the lives of everyone in Legoland. This is the big theme of the movie. Centralized Planning versus Emergent Order.
People everywhere are always messing with my stuff. But I have a way to fix that. A way to keep things exactly the way they are supposed to be. Permanently.
Centralized planning is where a person or a group of experts takes charge of a complex system or society as a whole, like Will Ferrell's character in the movie. Now, in real life, we rarely employ Will Ferrell to personally organize things like bus routes or educational standards. Central planning like that falls to politicians and bureaucrats. A popular term which has recently entered the national discourse is technocrat. Technocrats are just bureaucrats with hipper glasses. Whatever their title, the idea is that experts should organize and run things rather than leave them to the people at large. Letting smart people control fields they're smart at sounds like a smart idea, particularly if they're wearing hip glasses. But clearly it can go off the rails.
Good morning, apartment. Good morning, doorway. Morning wall, morning ceiling. Good morning, floor. Ready to start the day. Here it is. Instructions to fit in, have everybody like you, and always be happy.
On the extreme end of the central planning spectrum, you have Octan and Legoland, or in real life, command economies like fascist and communist regimes. The Communist Soviet Union, or USSR, was the biggest, most expansive experiment in human history in terms of putting experts in charge of stuff. It failed horribly. It turns out that the world is too complicated and too chaotic for guys in lab coats or neckties to manage from the top down. In the process of trying to, they ruined their economy, killed millions of people, and never got around to making sophisticated interlocking plastic blocks to play with. The competing, and ultimately triumphant, system in the Lego movie is Emergent Order. This is the idea that large groups of people can, without direction from the bureaucrats on high, build houses, invent gadgets, and navigate their cars on the highway pretty well.
All of you have the ability inside of you to be a groundbreaker. And I mean literally. Break the ground. Peel up the pieces. Tear apart your walls. Build things only you could build. Defend yourselves. We need to fight back against President Business's plans to freeze us.
In fact, what appears to be a chaotic swarm of individuals all doing their own thing works more like an accidental orchestra assembling itself without a conductor. A simple example is how much things cost.
That's $37.
Awesome!
In the Soviet Union, guys with calculators and clipboards would try to figure out the ideal price of a pair of shoes. Sometimes they would make the price too high and no one could afford them. Often they would make the price too low, and the first people to arrive at the store would buy all of the shoes, leaving the rest to go barefoot. Generally, somebody would screw up and they'd make half as many left shoes as right shoes. Or too many shoes but not enough bricks. or accidentally make brick shoes. Setting the right price became so difficult in the USSR that desperate Soviet bureaucrats even tried to copy the prices in Sears catalogs from the United States, but to no avail, and the whole system collapsed in the late 1980s. Conversely, in the marketplace, nobody has to set the price for all shoes. People in the market determine the price for shoes through the bidding process of supply and demand, with competing stores, regional variations, different brands, and more, all driven ultimately by consumer preferences and needs. This market process, an example of emergent order, accomplishes this spontaneously, without direction, and for countless transactions every day. In the United States, we've never experienced a full-throttle command economy like President Business in the Lego Movie or the USSR. But we still have a lot of debatable elements of centralized planning in our economy, from food and finance to energy and education to housing and healthcare. Think about how taxes work. You send your money to Washington, D.C. Eggheads in Washington decide how to best spend that money, consulting various and sundry lobbyists along the way, and then send it in smaller portions to other people along with instructions. If you've ever received a gift card for a birthday present to a store you don't like, that's pretty much how taxes work. Except that they're not a gift. In the Lego Movie, there were lots of different types of people in very different circumstances. Presumably, the people who live in Middle Zealand understand castle safety regulations better than someone who lives in a big tower a million miles away. And people in the Old West have a better idea of what saloon zoning laws work for them as well. That kind of local knowledge is something that central planners have never been able to master. Emergent order is ultimately the idea that complex coordination and harmony can evolve from the bottom up through the actions of individuals without one master designer telling everyone what to do. Emergent order is a vast, unconscious force like gravity or Chuck Norris, which will generally aggregate information better than some guy from Harvard. Even human language itself is an emergent order. I'm not speaking to you in Esperanto for a reason. And now it's time for everyone's favorite part of the show, subjective value, where we invite famous economists to weigh in with their thoughts. Today we have master market calculator Ludwig von Mises.
What a crowd, what a crowd. And I tell you folks, Austrians are crazy. Why did the Austrian rearrange his spice rack? Time preference. You know, the optimist, he thinks the glass is half full. The pessimist, he thinks it's half empty. The Austrian, he thinks capital was malinvested in oversized glassware. You know, folks, Austrian economists, they never die. They're just dragged, kicking and screaming into equilibrium. Now take my friend Hayek, please. No, folks, just kidding. Hayek, you know what his favorite Bruce Springsteen song is? Pink Cadillactics. How many Austrian economists does it take to screw in a light bulb? None. It was screwed in a priori. Thanks, folks. I'll be here all week. 5 stars.
Well, that's our show. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you're looking for more on the economics of central planning versus emergent order and the Lego Movie, you can download the EconPop podcast with economist Steve Horwitz, professor of literature Paul Cantor, and myself, available on iTunes. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go play with some Legos.